I just felt like I didn't have it tonight. And of course, you can comment. Oh my God.
Kawhi makes his move. Oh, wow! A major Kawhi light! Oh my goodness!
See how Kawhi does? Oh, it's crazy, man. Wow.
I love that. Players, they're just like us. They see a shot like this, and man, Kawhi and PG are locked in, have that series tied with the Jazz. We'll talk about what changed for them. And the Hawks are flying high after tying their series with the Sixers. Do you believe in the ATL? Superstars collided in Game 5 tonight. KD versus Giannis. Who is under more pressure? We'll discuss. So open your eyes and enjoy the show, because the jump starts now. That's the music you want on a Tuesday. Welcome to The Jump. I'm Rachel Nichols, thrilled to be joined by 8-time All-Star, future Hall of Famer, Mr. Vince Carter. Our fabulous NBA and WNBA analyst Monica McNutt is going to join us a little bit later in the show. We also have big news out of Brooklyn today. James Harden looks like he's going to give it a go in that pivotal Game 5. So, Vince, a lot to talk about. Welcome today. First, though, let's get to what happened in Atlanta. Constructing a winning NBA team is sort of like putting together a show-stopping meal. There are a lot of different ways to go about it. If you're historically a glamour franchise, maybe you have the resources to just go out and grab some lobster and caviar. If you're not, maybe you have to grow the ingredients at home yourself. Either way, once you get the food on the stove, it all comes down to the same thing. When the lights are the brightest, when the world is watching and everything is on the line, can you cook? The Atlanta Hawks keep proving their answer is a bona fide yes. Not only did they walk into Madison Square Garden in the first round and fillet a Knicks team carrying the momentum of all of New York City, they are now sitting just 2 wins away from the Eastern Conference Finals, thanks to last night's thrill ride of a win over the Sixers that tied that series at 2 apiece. And yes, a lot of what happens next year will depend on the health of Joel Embiid's knee, and we'll get to that in a moment. But let's not pretend the Hawks are just bystanders here. Atlanta was down 18 points near the end of the first half last night, and no one would have blinked twice if the team had just acquiesced. This is still a young group. Philadelphia is the #1 seed, led by a championship coach and 2 perennial All-Stars, and certainly the favorite in this matchup. But the Hawks did not acquiesce. The Hawks dug in, handily winning the third quarter to cut the Sixers' lead to 2, thanks to some dramatic and terrific two-way play from John Collins, and of course, a push from Trae Young, who continues to show he's not just sizzle, but strength as he fights through a shoulder injury. I loved this sequence with the two of them here in the fourth quarter. Collins hustling for a rebound, gives the ball to Trae, who makes, after the drive, this pass. I mean, come on. JC then pays it off with the triple. Young actually assisted or scored on the Hawks' final 15 points. And after the game, he talked about exactly the kind of environment, talk, and attitude that has exemplified this Atlanta team.
I mean, we've been fighting, all year. We've been fighting all year, and this team never gives up. We, no matter what the score is throughout the game, we know it's a long game. The NBA is a long game, and it's a 48-minute game. And for us, we just stay level-headed throughout the whole game. Every team's going to make runs, and so for us, I love the way we fight.
Now, while the Hawks were making runs, the Sixers were trying to figure out what was going on with their star. Joel Embiid took a mysterious, not actually that mysterious, trip to the locker room in the first half, and by the second half, it was clear he was having significant trouble with the knee injury that has been hounding him all series. He went an astounding 0 for 12 from the floor during that stretch. No missed basket more costly than the one with just under 10 seconds left, a point-blank layup that Embiid could, well, not lay up. Afterward, Joel said, quote, "I just didn't have lift," adding that not being able to jump for obvious reasons, it's tough. We don't know exactly how Embiid's health will go from here. The injury is a partially torn meniscus, and while honestly shouldn't be able to play well on it at all, he has somehow still managed to have some huge games in this series, and maybe he will be able to come up with another one when things shift back to Philadelphia for Wednesday's Game 5. Of course, the Hawks will be ready for that one too. As we saw last night, this is a team that knows how to take a meal that is simmering on the stove and turn it up to a full boil. You know what? You can keep your lobster and caviar. There's some good old-fashioned Southern cooking. And as you can see, it'll do just fine. So Vince, I'm supposed to ask you, since this is now a best of 3, do you believe in Atlanta? But Vince Carter, I know you believe in Atlanta. So tell me
Of course.
why you think that Atlanta can win this series.
I believe in Atlanta. Obviously, it's all based around Joel Embiid and his injury, because if we look what he did in the first 3 games, he was dominant. He was beating double team, single coverage, whatever he wanted. And even in the first half of Game 4, he was doing what he wanted. And then the second half, things changed a little bit, and the Hawks were able to play Joel single coverage. And they got to the shooters, and that allowed them to close out on Tobias Harris and to close out on Curry, and that allowed them to just take over the game or make the game easier for Joel Embiid. And you can see their confidence growing. But we have to give a shout out to John Collins, because what he did in the third quarter helped the Hawks get back into the game. And then, of course, Trey took over in the fourth.
I want to take advantage of the fact that you played on this team, Vince. So get us inside the locker room here, especially with John Collins, because we've talked about Trey plenty. He has been just a supernova this playoffs. John Collins' development has been so promising, really, since his rookie year, but it's had stops and starts. What did you see of him when you played with him, and what are you seeing, how that all comes to fruition in a game like last night?
Well, first off, I mean, he's just flying under the radar this year, and he's playing great basketball. I remember walking in the door, and John just like, hey, let's get it. Let's learn. I want to get better. And he wants to get better, and he wants to learn. And we just worked on footwork, technique, catching and shooting threes, and look what he's doing as far as his footwork behind the three-point line, which maybe a lot of people don't notice. But you showed that play where Trey made the pass to him for 3 underneath, and he just catches it and shoots it now with confidence. He doesn't hesitate. So what he's done, what Kevin Herter has done as far as just his maturity and confidence, and Clint Capella defensively and just cleaning up on the glass, scoring. I mean, years ago, did you ever think you could throw the ball to Clint Capella and he's going to get you a bucket and doing what he's doing? And they just believed. I mean, they're playing with a lot of confidence right now, and they should be excited down here in Atlanta.
Well, look, the way they went after Clint, it didn't have immediate payoff. In fact, when they traded for him, you know, Vince, he was hurt, right? So there was a lot of people being like, why exactly did you make this move, especially right now? And guess what? It was for this reason. They knew when this team was finally able to come together, they would get that kind of play. And man, especially since Nick McMillan took over that coaching job, they have been on a rocket ship. You did mention Joel Embiid, of course, as goes him in the rest of this series. 0 for 12 from the field after halftime. And here was Embiid after the game talking a little more about his health. Take a listen.
Yeah, it's back in half. So, I've been playing well. And, sometimes you just can't control it. Sometimes I thought in the second half a bunch of shots were in and out. There was a couple calls that could have gone, either way. I can do better. I can always do better. But as far as, you being 100%, I don't think that's going to happen. Until the year is actually over. I said I just got to go out and, manage it and just deal with it.
So, Vince, that was the worst shooting half of basketball in the last 25 postseasons. Now, you didn't have, I was going to say, your game wasn't quite that rough, but you're on the list, my friend. 0 for 10, right, in 2006. How does Embiid shake this off going forward in the series? What did you do?
For him, early in the game, you want to get fouled, get to the free throw line. And it happened in the second half because he was playing great basketball in the first half. And of course, the injury. And you look at that last play, he said, I couldn't dunk the ball. And I noticed he was just searching for fouls because he couldn't get the lift he wanted. And you can see Clint Capella did a great job of avoiding the contact, and nothing was there, and he just blows the layup. So for Joel, it's as much treatment as you can possibly get, and you give your team everything you have. But he's going to need his supporting cast. Ben Simmons going to have to play better. Obviously, Curry was on fire in the first half, and once they were able to play Joel Embiid single coverage, Hawks were able to get out to the shooter. So they have decisions to make, but I'll feature Joel Embiid early and see what happens.
Yeah, and first of all, it's such a great point you made about the defense. I do think there's going to be a heart-to-heart between Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid sometime before that next game of, to your point, not hunting for fouls, not having this be in his head. Right, Vince?
And Rachel, I want to say one more thing. And we got to think defensively, if he's not healthy, that's going to be a big factor because early in the first 3 games, the Hawks weren't really able to get the lob play, the pick and roll that they were typically getting. You see him limping there. Now you put Joel Embiid in the pick and roll, and he has a decision to make. Does he play the lob? Does he get up on Trey for the floater? And now that 3-point shot opens up. So I suspect the Hawks will go at him early to test that knee out as well.
So interesting. And I will say, Vince, you've been in that arena obviously a ton. That place was on fire last night. So shout out to the Hawks fans. It was awesome.
It's crazy.
Awesome to see. All right, coming up, we're going to talk James Harden because he has now been upgraded to questionable for Game 5 tonight. This is a huge reversal. He was rolled out yesterday. Now he's going to try to give it a go. I will ask Vince what it is like to play hurt in a high-stakes game. First, though, time for our distant replay. This date, 2001. Vince, you've heard of Shaquille O'Neal. He played in the NBA quite some time. Owns many rings and other jewelry.
We talked about Embiid down in the post. Just look at that. Just a shoulder check. And then excuse me, sir.
Unstoppable. All defensive teams were announced yesterday. First team featuring Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green, Ben Simmons, Drew Holiday, and Giannis. The second team features Joel Embiid, Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Matisse Thybulle. Monica McNutt, welcome to the jump. Anyone you wanted to see on there that did not make it?
Thanks for the welcome, Rachel. Hey, VC. Dylan Brooks, anyone? I mean, this is the guy who slowed down Steph significantly, obviously, in that play-in game. But just in general, I mean, he has the rep of never backing down from a good defensive matchup. I'm going to assume the fact that he's so willing to use all of his fouls kind of hurt his case, but I think Dylan Brooks should have been on this list.
I'm going to go with Clint Capella. And Rachel, I already know what you're going to say, the Hawks. But Clint Capella, what he's done for his team and allowed them to move on. I mean, he was great against with the Knicks. He was great against the Knicks, as far as defensively, getting them in transition and knocking down threes. So where's Clint Capella?
By the way, using all your fouls is part of the game. They let you do that, Monica. I'm just saying.
No.
What it do, baby? Make, miss. It's a make or miss league, baby. That's it.
Hey, when it's it, it's it. Make Houdini. Let's start in Philly. Trae Young. Well, not in Philly, but Trae Young driving, finds John Collins in the corner. We showed this earlier. When you see your youngsters, Vince, playing like this, are you so proud?
It's a proud big brother moment. I mean, those guys have played together long enough to where Trae knows where John is, and John is. You see, his hands were already ready because he knew it was coming.
What do you like about this? Right?
The craftiness from Trae, man. I mean, he's elevated on this stage, both as a scorer and a facilitator, easily.
I love this whole thing because, by the way, John came up with the rebound that kicked this back out and everying to begin with. Teammate makes the dream. Teamwork makes it. I'm done. All right, let's move on. There you go. Miss. Boxing out. Sticking with John Collins. Not just one, but 2 big putbacks for Atlanta in the second half.